If you've looked for a commissioning standard to follow on your projects, you've probably come across bits and pieces of information on some standards that are available, but it can be quite confusing on which standards apply to which types of projects and which standard you should be using on your projects. This was a presentation I gave on the various standards that are available and which standards you should be using for your industrial plant process and energy system projects. Have a listen to the following presentation to find out what makes the ICA Global Commissioning Standard truly remarkable.
You're listening to the Industrial Commissioning Association podcast, where we discuss best practices for industrial plant process and energy system commissioning. Get ready to say no to outdated industry norms and say yes to improved project performance. Here's your host, Paul Turner.
In this presentation, we're going to talk about what makes the ICA Global Commissioning Standard remarkable and how you can use it to save time and money on projects. My name is Paul, and I show project professionals working on industrial plant process and energy systems how to become a global commissioning leader capable of completing commissioning on time and on budget by applying the ICA Global Commissioning Standard best practices to projects. So the first question I often get asked when people are talking about commissioning is, what standard should I follow? And this is a good question that has not really had a good answer until very recently. So there's really two types of commissioning when it comes to standards. There's the building commissioning process. So this is ASHRAE or NEBB, BCXA, or CSA, and these are all building commissioning processes. And then there's the industrial commissioning process, which is defined by the ICA Global Commissioning Standard. Building commissioning is very common. When you walk down a city block, you pass a lot of buildings that require HVAC and life safety system commissioning. But industrial commissioning is a bit more specialized, right? Since it's a much more integrated process of more complex systems and requires much more attention to the operational aspects of the facility than a building typically would. The facilities requiring industrial commissioning are a bit more hidden, since when you walk down a city block, you don't see as many power substations or an LNG plant or water treatment or wastewater treatment facility on every city block, which is why building commissioning has gotten a lot more attention over the years, and is maybe why these two commissioning processes often get confused. So there are a lot of similarities between the two processes, but there's a reason that process and energy systems don't use ASHRAE as the standard for commissioning. The building commissioning process doesn't cover all aspects required for more complex industrial facilities. Building commissioning systems are typically much more standalone systems, right? Sure, there's some small interfaces between a lot of the subsystems, but for the most part, your lighting control is independent from your security system, is independent from HVAC, and independent from your sprinkler systems, other than maybe a few small interfaces between those items. These life safety systems largely function on their own and don't integrate as one functional plant process. The industrial commissioning process applies to projects such as power systems, including high voltage substations or power generation and transmission, renewable energy systems, oil and gas systems such as an LNG plant. LNG is quite popular. There's a lot of projects going on for LNG these days. Process systems such as water and wastewater treatment, a desalination plant, a hydrogen generation facility. These would all follow an industrial commissioning process. Manufacturing facilities such as, say, a mining facility or chemical production plant. Data centers, their power and cooling systems often get quite a bit more complex and require more of an industrial commissioning process. Rail and transport systems that would have, say, switching and controls that all require integration together. Really, any project that has mechanical, electrical, and automation systems that need to function together as one integrated functional system. When it comes to commissioning of industrial plant process and energy systems, there has been a gap in the industry for quite some time. What you'll find is a lot of the big companies have had to develop their own processes since there has been no standard to follow for commissioning. Some of the documents that you may have come across or heard about are National Grid's TP141. This is their internal specification for commissioning of National Grid electrical apparatus. And this is a very high standard and a very difficult exam to pass to achieve TP141 certification. But this is only available to National Grid employees and their select designated partners that are working on National Grid facilities. CII, the Construction Industry Institute, they provide some guidance and suggestions for commissioning best practices, and these documents are quite good. They list the success factors and KPIs to monitor. They're somewhat more from a construction perspective, but they don't define the complete commissioning process to follow through all stages of projects. They're more of guidelines and suggestions, which are certainly helpful, but don't get into the details of a properly structured commissioning process. API 1FSC, you might have come across this one from API. This document gives a general overview of the commissioning process, but it's missing some of the details. For example, this document focuses on construction completions and on-site testing, but does not cover earlier steps in the commissioning process that take place prior to on-site testing. So it's definitely a good guideline, but it doesn't get into the depth required for a fully developed commissioning process that you would see from some of the bigger companies that have developed their own processes in the industry. Each of the big companies has their own internal process for commissioning as well. So the big companies like Shell or BP, Total, Siemens, and others have each developed their own internal processes for commissioning. And these are pretty good documents. If you've worked on any of these projects and had the chance to see their processes. However, these are all internal documents and not available for others to reference on their projects. So unless you're part of one of these big companies' projects, these processes don't really help you. So you can see there's been limited information on commissioning out there. And because of this, commissioning is generally not well understood on projects. The bits and pieces of information that you can find are confusing and contradicting and maybe don't even apply to your projects. It's difficult to find the right information, and this keeps a lot of people from success with commissioning on their projects. So it's understandable if you've had difficulties implementing robust commissioning processes in the past. So that's what the Industrial Commissioning Association is here for, to fill the gap and show you how to implement world-class commissioning on your projects, which is why the ICA Global Commissioning Standard was developed to cover all aspects of more complex commissioning of integrated systems. We have gathered the world's leading commissioning experts in all industries to develop this standard and make it the best and most comprehensive commissioning standard for industrial plant process and energy system projects. Some of the biggest companies and some of the world's best and brightest commissioning minds have contributed to develop this standard and make this the one global standard that has been missing in the industry for quite some time. When you think about it, it's kind of crazy that there's lots of standards for design and there's lots of standards for construction. There's even testing standards that must be followed, but there has never been a comprehensive standard that defines a well-developed commissioning process. So it's understandable that commissioning has not been well understood on projects when there has been no baseline standard that defines what the commissioning process even is. So you can visit our website at icxa.net and see some of our global partners that have contributed to developing this standard to fill this gap and make this the most comprehensive standard to follow for industrial plant process and energy system commissioning. The Industrial Commissioning Association has developed the set of ICA Global Commissioning Standards, so project teams can implement a structured approach to commissioning so they can avoid cowboy commissioning and save time and money on projects. Our goal is to help project teams complete projects more efficiently during commissioning by following the ICA Global Commissioning Standard on projects by following simple planning frameworks that make it much easier for you to plan and execute commissioning on your projects, and so individuals and organizations can become global commissioning leaders to successfully complete projects. Whether you work on big projects or small projects, the ICA Global Commissioning Standard applies to all sizes of projects, and I'm going to show you how. Without a standard approach to commissioning, it can feel quite daunting to guide teams from point A to point B. There are a lot of paths you can take on a project and a lot of wrong turns along the way that can result in very expensive mistakes. There are a lot of groups working on projects, and without a standard to follow, everyone has their own idea of what success looks like during commissioning, and it's very difficult to keep everyone focused on the end goal of successful commissioning and startup. Instead, what you need is a proven path to follow to start projects with the end in mind and complete projects as efficiently as possible. It's like that for everything, and projects are no different. You wouldn't run a marathon without first knowing where the finish line is. You would be running in circles for quite a long time if you didn't know how to finish the race. With the ICA Global Commissioning Standard, you've got all the lessons learned from the past several decades of commissioning, all consolidated into one single document that you can follow for your project success. So what's next? How do you actually start implementing the ICA Global Commissioning Standard on your projects? How do you start implementing these commissioning best practices on your projects to save time and money on projects and complete projects as efficiently as possible? The ICA Global Commissioning Standard is available to everyone. You can log into the ICXA members area, and when you do, you can download a copy of the standard and start using it right away. There is no fee to access the standard. We want to get this information in as many hands as possible to help people succeed with completing projects. And for individuals or organizations that would like some more help to implement these best practices on projects, we've got training programs to train your team on how to implement a well-structured commissioning process. We've got consulting services for teams that need a bit more guided support, and we've got several other resources and support options in the ICXA members area to make sure you're successful on projects with commissioning. So please check out our other videos to help you with commissioning, such as how to implement the ICA Global Commissioning Standard on projects and why projects must start with the end in mind. To learn more about the ICA Global Commissioning Standard and how it can help you successfully complete projects. And if you have any questions at all, please contact us at info@icxa.net. Thanks for watching and have a great day.
Thanks for listening. To become a member of the Industrial Commissioning Association, visit icxa.net. Members get access to commissioning standards, procurement specifications, commissioning training and certification, plus many more specialized resources to help you with commissioning of your industrial plant process and energy systems. Visit icxa.net for more information.